All right, welcome back, everyone. I'm Alex Jamal. I'm going to be your moderator for this amazing session. I'm a celebrity nutritionist and celebrity trainer as well, representing Fitness Results Coach. In this session, we're going to have our lovely friends from the industry. We're going to explore three foundation pillars for human performance and well-being: fueling, hydration, and recovery, and how coaches can use that to elevate client results, energy movement, and long-term vitality. We're going to start with Dr. Jonathan. He's an educator and scientist, a friend of mine from the International Society for Sports Nutrition. We met years ago, amazing lecturer. And we're gonna have the mysterious Mel, I call her. Funny enough, I tried to look her up, I couldn't find her until a minute ago we met. She's the creator of Leaner Bar, blending performance nutrition with simple functional fueling solutions. Welcome, Mel. Doctor, thank you for being here all the way from Hawaii.
Aloha.
All right. She's a wellness reader and known author for integrating strength, mindset, and movement flow. And we have Christine. How are you, Christine? All right. CEO and founder of Aletha, best-selling author and pioneer in soft tissue health, chronic pain, and recovery innovation. All right. I'm going to open this panel talking about evolving landscape of client wellness. So, and nowadays, what do you see major shift that clients approach their health and performance and self-care today? How can we improve that?
Are you talking to me?
Go.
Yeah.
Yes? Okay. I'm having trouble hearing. It's almost like a little bit muted over here. Are you having the same problem? Yeah. So I couldn't really hear everything you were saying. It was kind of like, whoa. And I was looking at you and
Okay,
smiling.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Can
Yeah, sure. What major shifts are you seeing in how clients approach their health, performance, and self-care today?
Thank you. So the big shift we're seeing is people are trying to obviously do better, cleaner, healthier in their grab and go, in what they're doing to power their workouts. The biggest thing that I have seen out in the publics and in the gyms is people are trying to look for better nutrients, cleaner fuel, things that are void of seed oil. I mean, that's one of the reasons why we made Linear Bar, was to bring something that would not inflame the body. A lot of the foods that people tend to eat that are grab and go are inflammatory, so we're very mindful of that. Trying to get people to read the label more has been another trend. You think, well, everybody reads the label. No, they don't.
No, they don't.
They see protein and they go, it's healthy. But that's not always true. So I just say that's another big thing we're seeing, is people are getting more savvy, more educated. And as the gentleman said before, education is key in everything you do, including your nutrition. It affects your performance. And the old adage, you are what you eat. So if you're eating junk, you're going to feel like that. The trends for us are people looking for cleaner, better, grab and go or convenience, even though that's, still doesn't replace whole foods, but the better for you category has been surging. Void of seed oils has been the top of the list.
Where do you see coaches need to adapt that in order to meet their evolving expectation, Dr. Mike?
Same question?
No? Where do you see or believe coaches need to adapt most in order to meet these expectations?
I think coaches and trainers need to do a better job of, I think we're moving away from the generic workouts, and coaches and trainers need to do a better job of becoming more of a performance manager. So they need to adapt and evolve. They need, instead of, I was talking about this with one of the other speakers earlier, education can mean a lot of different things to a lot of people, but in a traditional sense, education still is too much on the quote, the degrees, and it needs to be more of the actual implementation execution side. So that's what I do, is more elevating strength and power and athletic performance through science and innovation. So coaches need to be more performance managers and implementing better systems to their clients and athletes. Clients and athletes don't really need more motivation. They need better regulation and implementation.
Do you agree, Dr. Desi? Christine?
I was just going to add, with the scene out there with AI making things so accessible for people, individuals are taking more control of their health and they have more autonomy. We have different apps and different experiences that are put out in the world where people can actually take care of their own hormones or understand more about their own nutrition. And as coaches, I think this is a great opportunity for each and every one of you to expand what it is that you can offer to your clients through piggybacking on all these resources that are available. Healthcare used to be something that was very much confined to going to a doctor or going to like a licensed practitioner. And now there's so much more access for individuals like us to get trained and to understand things, not necessarily to become like a practitioner in that, but to be able to be a bridge to show your clients other aspects of health and wellness, whether it's nutrition or hydration or different aspects. So it's a really exciting time where people are taking back their health and their autonomy and taking care of themselves. They're frustrated by going to doctors and not getting the answers that they want. And they're saying, yeah, I need to figure this out myself and have the tools that are needed to do that on your own.
Yeah, also, nowadays, it's easier access to information. Like, we can easily get online and reach out to professionals like you or read more about it, get more educated versus way back in the days.
Can I add something real quick? Everybody knows that training hard and training is a goal, but the overarching goal should be a higher degree of adaptation, right? That's something that's a component that trainers and coaches miss all the time. Training is great, but the adaptation needs to be the overarching goal. It really doesn't matter how often you train, how hard you train, or what your bro split is. It only matters what you're able to really recover from. And that's the bottom line. If you can train 7 days a week and recover great, awesome. You could take two people, they could do the exact same workout, all things given equal, one will improve and one won't. There's so much inter-individual variability, but adaptation needs to be the overarching goal in the theme, not just training hard. So recovery is important. I know we'll get to that, so I'll just keep it there.
A little bit.
I'd love to add on to what you just said. So again, everyone, my name is Desiree Bartlett. Everyone calls me Desi, and I really specialize in women's health. So like so many of the beautiful women here, I work with pregnant women, new mothers, and women in perimenopause and beyond. And what I'm seeing is that we have some highly educated women who are simply looking for better answers. And what I'm seeing in the coaching space is it's really time for us to share the thought and the idea and the message of not only working out, but working in. So whether that's meditation, yoga, recovery practices, listening to our own inner voice and our inner wisdom before we hit Dr. Google, because Dr. Google will give us every answer ever in all directions.
Yeah, well, for everyone who, before reading, definitely it's amazing that they're trying to research, but the source where you're reading from is more important. Talking about nutrition, fueling for energy, performance, and daily life. From your perspective, what does smart fueling look like for most people? Could you give us some examples?
The worst and the best. So the worst is I see a lot of people still, listen, I hope I don't offend anybody. There's still people doing a lot of if it fits your macros, and that's okay as long as it's not a bunch of junk. That's really the big thing. The trends that we're kind of seeing for fueling workouts are going back to whole foods. Yes, I make a protein bar. The design of what I made was to be void of those inflammatory ingredients, never to replace real, organic, whole foods that can fuel your body, that can give you the energy you need. But it is interesting to see that we're in a space that even within my category, which is mostly a lot of toxic stuff, we have no junk in ours, but you're going to see a lot of people wanting to introduce things like peptides, which we're already there in our nutrition package. We're trying to bring that to people as a trend because not everybody wants to inject. Not everybody wants to read everything. So we're going to try and bring those efficient ways of fueling a workout or even post-workout to where, let's just say you're short on meal prep, you haven't had the time to prepare. If you're going to grab for something, and I just say to people, please look at what you're doing. You don't want to create more inflammation in the body, but we are seeing, for us in our space, people are trending more back towards whole foods. Thank goodness. Bad for us, because I'm in the food business, but that's what we want to encourage overall, is people to get back to the basics, because if you think of the rainbow of the food that you can consume from nature, that same rainbow will be, like you said, from the inside. and it radiates out. So again, the adage, you are what you eat, I'm going to keep coming back to that. So if you fuel strong and you fuel good, you can achieve better goals, go further, and I think that's each person's journey to educate themselves.
What do you think, Dr. Desi?
So I completely agree with you. I love that. And what I like to teach about as well is about the interconnection of the body and the mind. And so reminding people that, nutrition is not just what we take in through our mouth, it's what we take in through our eyes and our ears. So if your client shows up and they just got off of half an hour of Fox News or CNN and then went to Starbucks, and a lot of them do that, how are they showing up? How are they nourishing what's inside? So I just wanted to add that little point. Absolutely clean food, but also clean thoughts.
Yeah, smart fueling, and I'm very practical. If you've never seen me speak, I'm very real world and very practical. Smart fueling needs to be about stability, predictability, and then less about perfection. So you have protein adequacy, which obviously for repair, regeneration of muscle tissue, strategic carb consumption that's based around the physical demands of the exercise, and of course, healthy fats. And understand that energy, mood, cravings, and consistency are largely governed by blood glucose stability, protein adequacy, and then total energy availability, right? So the smart fueling needs to match the physiology, not just whatever trend is currently in place.
Christine, what simple habits people could implement in their daily life that could affect their energy and consistency?
Yeah, I think one of the challenges people have is there's so many habits that you can start, right? So many different things that you can do to take care of your health. And in my practice, I've focused as a physical therapist on distilling it down to what are the most important and most potent things, right? Like Desi, you're talking about mind, right? Mind is so important, and what your thoughts are, meditation, getting yourself into a place of center, because mental tension is just the other side of the coin of physical tension, right? Those things impact your inflammation, impact everything, right? So all these things are connected, but really identifying what is the most important thing that you need to focus on. And one of the things that I've seen as a big missing piece of the puzzle is addressing muscle tension. Now, you might think that you're addressing muscle tension by stretching or foam rolling or using your lacrosse ball. But anytime you're rubbing, stretching, and rolling, that's doing something. It's doing something very important, but it's not getting the muscle trained to relax. And when we're holding tension and our physical tension in our bodies, that changes the alignment of our entire body. It compresses our joints. It makes our muscles weaker. It makes opposing muscles weaker. I wrote a whole book on this subject because it's something that is just so undertreated and something that is accessible for each and every one of you to work with your clients on. So habits. Habits are like daily things that you do on a regular basis to maintain. You brush your teeth every day, not because you have a cavity, but because you want to prevent the cavity, right? Same thing with muscle tension. You release muscle tension in key areas of the body, front and back of your hips, and your neck and shoulders, that really impact everything. That is a habit that all of you can encourage your clients to do that will make a big, big impact on how the body's functioning, on both the physical side and the mental side.
Desi, what do you suggest to your clients as far as habits?
Well, I teach yoga, so I, of course, am going to suggest yoga as a sustainable practice. I see a lot of women, especially around my age, like Gen X, and what I see is that they have so much on their plates and they're stressed out, and adding more habits can be sort of overwhelming. So if anything, I want to kind of peel it back and I want to make it easier for them. I want their nervous system to find a sense of calm so that they can really, again, listen to that inner voice. For those of you who are coaches, I really highly encourage you to check out some sustainable practice, some form of working in, whether it's meditation, yoga, Tai Chi, calls to your heart.
Sustainability is a player, like a major key player. To pick habits that are sustainable, they're going to change your life.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then as coaches, once you're working with someone, talk to them with this voice. Breathe. Put your hand on your heart and really be present with them and their nervous system so that they can regulate their own body.
Oh, yeah. Quickly, I give this tip to a lot of my clients that whenever you feel out of control of the whatever around you, take 10 deep breaths. 10 deep breaths and then see how everything could be much better. All right, moving to the second subject, hydration. I mean, hydration is often overlooked and oftentimes probably misunderstood by coaches. Dr. Mike, I like your Instagram posts. They're very educational. But I'm sure you have a lot of experience when it comes to giving tips about hydration to your clients and how much is hydration important for focus, mood, recovery, and as well as performance.
All right, there's a lot to that. I actually think of hydration as like performance insurance. It's cheap and it's high impact. Now, I'm not talking about your car insurance. I'm talking about physiological insurance. It's cheap, it can be readily available, but it's high impact. But you also have to think of like hydration is a massive thermoregulator. It also comes down to like, for example, like plasma volume, which is the watery portion of blood. It also comes down to heart rate variability and what's called cardiovascular drift, especially when it's a hot, humid type of environment. Somebody could be really well trained, like endurance performers, marathon runners, but if they're dehydrated, it doesn't matter. Their performance is going to suck. It doesn't matter. There's also aspects of like hydration. Most people think of hydration as like, I just got to drink more water. It's not wrong, but it comes down to, it's like fluids, it's electrolytes, and it's also a third hidden gem, which is context, right? What is the environmental temperature like? Is it hot? Is it cold? Did you have caffeine? Do you travel? Or you're high or altitude? Most people around here are not high altitude. Okay, altitude in terms of having even a short-term negative response needs to be about 10,000 feet. Like Pikes Peak in Colorado Springs is like 14,000 feet. The Sandia Mountains in Albuquerque, where I lived for many years, that's like 10,000, 10,500. Okay, Mount Everest is right at 30,000 feet. Sorry to disappoint everybody, but we're not going to be going to Mount Everest anytime soon, at least people in this room. If you are, awesome, you're crazier than me, and there are people that have climbed Mount Everest without using supplemental oxygen, by the way. But yeah, hydration is super important. It's a massive thermoregulator. Look at it as like performance insurance. It's cheap, and it's a high impact. When you feel headaches, when you feel fatigued, it's not sugar cravings. It's almost always some type of lack of hydration or salts, sodium.
Yeah, if I could piggyback on what you're saying, we're really familiar with hangry, or in Espanol, en hambre. We feel angry when we don't have enough food or enough fuel. When we don't have enough hydration, we're tired. So we need a word that combines those two. But I see everyone, go ahead, take a sip. You'll feel better. Yeah. We need that water so that we can train optimally and also so that we can show up for our clients optimally.
Yeah, I agree. When we wake up dehydrated. So first thing is water, not coffee. And as males, by the way, you wake up dehydrated 3% less than a female. And if you hydrate well, your focus will be way much better. Christine, like from your experience, how can clients better assess their hydration and adjust according to their daily activity? So what's needed to be done like on daily basis? Some days we move more than others. So what do you suggest?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough one. We've talked about some really great subjects so far around hydration. I think if you're feeling thirsty, it's way too late, right? I mean, you need to be drinking throughout the day in the right context. One of the things that I see a lot of clients that are hypermobile, which is an area that I think, we all need to be aware of, because flexibility is something that is great up to a point and can be like a negative if it's too much. I was just speaking to a few people in the back there about being really overly and hydration is particularly important for people that are hypermobile. If they don't have enough water in their system, then their blood vessels don't have enough really support to kind of hold their system and to regulate their blood pressure and to be able to function in the way that they need to. And that's something that I think a lot of you can illuminate your clients with. They may not even know that they're hypermobile, and how important hydration is for their vascular systems, migraines, yes, different pieces of the puzzle.
Mel, what do you think about hydration? Since you created an amazing bar that almost...
You have to drink afterwards, right? But from my perspective, I do come from a science formulating background. That yes, is my background. Ended up in food. Optimally, even the simplest things that I implement in my life, if I don't have necessarily the right hydration, I always carry salt with me, a little bit of salt under the tongue, take my water that helps to drive it into the cell, so I'm not just drinking, because we can drink a lot of water and still not, as was said earlier, not get the proper hydration. So making sure it gets driven into the cell and optimizing that. And of course, I would just say we are coming into the drink space as well. We'll be launching products in that area, and we're looking to how to help people not just recover, but also understand how these nutrients are. It's not just water. You need all of your electrolytes, not just salt, not just magnesium, not just potassium. All of the other indicators that will help the cellular level maintain that hydration.
Now I'm thirsty.
Well, they gave us a great water. But there's a study that was made on football players. The ones that were 1% less dehydrated were less focused on the field. So drink water and drink a lot of water. It's okay, you can use the restrooms a lot. All right. Something very, very, very important is as important as training, recovery. Recovery is major. So what recovery practices do you think are essential right now, Christine?
So I've been speaking a lot about muscle tension because that's an area that we do need to focus more on. Recovery is really just repairing and preparing yourself for life, right? So, I've always struggled with, is recovery like a thing you do after, or is it a thing you're really doing before, right? To prepare for what's next, whether that's, preparing to go to bed so that your body is, relaxed and aligned and can fully, repair as you're sleeping, right? Or is it preparing for your day? So I think that, it's interesting to think about recovery not as something that always is after a workout, in this example, but as how do you take care of your body so that you fully recover on all levels, whether that's a nutritional level, that's a hydration level, whether that's on the, you had a really stressful day, you need to kind of ground into yourself and recover in that way. So expanding that, across that more of a holistic viewpoint, helping people identify how they can check in with themselves and identify the areas where their body needs to be recovered, what layer they need to recover. So we talked about all these examples, but when it comes to muscle tension, we live in a world as human beings where we are bombarded with a lot of stress, a lot of sitting, a lot of driving, a lot of air travel, a lot of things that actually create so much tension. And I've talked to a bunch of athletes here who are like, yeah, I'm a boxer, I'm always like this, or I'm kicking all the time, and I'm always, you're creating all this tension, so you need to have a plan to undo the effect of being a modern human in this world. And that plan, is focusing on the key muscles of the body that are the muscles that get tight. If we all think about, if you're stressed, what do you want to do? You either want to run or you want to curl up in a ball, right? That's fight or flight, right? Well, what muscles do you use to curl up in a ball? Your hip flexors and your chest and your neck, right? Those are the muscles that are tight in nearly everyone. So if everyone just focused on those key areas of the body and spent 90 seconds putting pressure on these key areas, that would make a huge impact on how the body would feel, on all levels.
Okay, it doesn't matter how much you train, it only matters what you can recover from. Recovery, people talk about recovery like it's a single entity. It's not. It's a multi-layered approach. It always has been, and it always will be. There's the training recovery. There's different types and different methods. Cold water immersion, saunas, like yoga is a form of recovery. Pilates can be a form of recovery. Meditation can be a form of recovery. There's the training side. Then there's the nutritional side. There's the protein recovery. There's the carbohydrate glycogen replenishment recovery. So you have a multi-layered approach with the training side and the actual nutrition side. There's also things that people sometimes forget, and I look at it as, and this is where coaches and trainers I think really need to do a better job of what I said earlier about becoming more performance managers. You start to need to look at recovery as a skill. Teaching clients and athletes higher levels of self-awareness. And you can do basic things you can do a sliding scale, for example. If your sleep should be 7 to 8, for example, but today it's 2 or 3, maybe because you traveled. Well, then that's going to affect your performance output. So that means you might be able to still work out. Obviously, you should do that. But then it'll be less intense, for example, lower on the technicality of training, okay? Maybe you're doing high intensity trap bar deadlifts, for example, but when you travel, your sleep sucks Your recovery is lower, so that you can still work out, but the technicality side of the training is going to be less. Okay, you guys see how all this stuff is like highly integrated. People talk about like they're separate things, but they're not. Like they're always going to be integrated. So look at recovery like as a skill, but also a multi-layer approach.
Doctor, since you're the professional in yoga and movement, simple daily practices that help in less pain, feeling better, what do you have for us?
So I live on the island of Oahu now, and we have all 4 branches of military. And what I see that is so cool is the Navy SEALs are starting to use box breathing, which is essentially just a form of pranayama. They're working with the life force energy and determining where they're going to send it. And is the feeling that they're looking to gain, like the feeling of being, really energized or really relaxed or whatever it is that they're using to regulate their nervous system. So I love to bring the ancient technology of yoga and pranayama to modern training techniques and making sure that people are breathing correctly. I see a lot of people, especially women my age, when we inhale, we suck it in because we don't want that belly to push out. I also see a lot of people who smoke or vape. When they inhale, they suck it in because it's taking the drag. So I would encourage you, let's just do it. Everyone, please sit up nice and tall in your chair. Bring one hand to your heart and one hand to your abdomen, and please close your eyes. Take a moment to feel fully present in your body, your mind, and your heart. Feel your sit bones pressing down into the chair, creating a strong and stable foundation. And now feel the crown of your head rising up towards the beautiful Santa Monica sky. As you inhale, fill your abdomen with breath, oxygen. Let it fill up to your chest. Enjoy a slow, steady exhalation, if you can, through the nose only. And feel your abdominal muscles gently hugging in and massaging your organs. We'll do that 2 more times. Slow, steady inhalation, filling up with whatever you need today. More oxygen, more light, more energy. On that slow, steady exhalation, release the air completely and feel the relationship between the pelvic floor, the diaphragm, and the core muscles. And then one final time on your own, great big breath in. Feel yourself being completely re-energized for the rest of this beautiful day, surrounded by so many incredible coaches. I'm looking at one of my best friends out there, Dr. Eden. Slow, steady exhalation, releasing all of that air and whatever no longer serves. Thank you.
Thank you. Amazing. The scientists who discovered nitric oxide won a Nobel Award. Nitric oxide increases the oxygen and gives you more blood dilation. Oxygen is amazing, not only because we need it to live, but has a lot of health benefits. All right. Personalization, client-centered coaching. Nowadays, every client would like to be like, let's just say, I don't want to say selfish, but they like to have a personalized guidance. So, doctor, what does personalization look like through the lens of your expertise?
I think the personalization needs to match the training stress with the recovery capacity. If you're training 7 days a week and 4 of those days is chest, okay, then you're probably going to have a recovery problem. Or you're training 7 days a week and one of those days is like legs. This is not programming 101. We're just saying like you can't expect to have a high training output with low recovery inputs. So in other words, like what is your training strategy like? Like how do they move? Like in other words, how are they able to produce force? What's their progression rate like? And people train too much in sagittal plane, for example. They train too much in sagittal plane, they can't stabilize in the frontal plane, and they lack power and rotation in the transverse plane. Most machines out there, 90+% of them, are sagittal plane movers. It's not a bad thing. Don't look at it as like something's wrong or something's right. Think like what you can do to be better creative and make people higher degrees of like functionality. Okay, you need mobility, you need thoracic mobility, hip mobility, internal and external rotation at the thoracic spine, hips and ankles, and a lot of rotational force. Okay, so think of it that way. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead. You can finish.
Oh no, I'm just saying like, and then what do those levers look like for your client or your athlete? So what's your movement strategy like? What are your recovery parameters? And think of things like levers. Well, shit, like today really sucked. Well, it's only don't pull the lever. Well, today is feeling awesome. I got great energy. Great. Pull the lever. Same thing with protein. Same thing with carbohydrate, like all that stuff. Think of it as levers, but they're not all independent. Think of these things like they're all light switches, but instead of having multiple individual light switches, they all have one dimmer or multiple dimmers, and you have to dim and adjust and adapt as you go on.
I was going to jump in and appreciate your talk about rotation. Rotation
Exactly.
is so important. In our hips, we use our hips a lot for flexion and extension, but rotation is where it's at. And if you have tension in your iliacus muscle, which I'm not sure how many of you have addressed, has anyone here addressed their iliacus muscle or released their, yeah, there's like 2 of you. That is one of the most important muscles of your body. And when that's tight, it causes compression in your hip joint and it limits your rotation. So if you're a golfer, right?
It causes a lot of back pain.
It causes a lot of back pain too. Yes. So working on rotation is huge, and having the muscle release to be able to facilitate that range of motion is great. And I did want to speak just a little bit to personalization. A lot of the way that you personalize with your clients is by understanding what it is that they need. Right? So there's the assessment. You're observing what they're doing. They're telling you how they're feeling. You're gathering information from them that then you can then use to give them something that's going to benefit them in that moment. So learning, I call them like party tricks or like little hacks that you can identify in an individual and be able to share with them what they need to do. So one of the things that I put into the continuing ed course that we're actually giving to everybody for free that is at this event is how to identify when someone has muscle tension in their body just by watching them move. And then what do you do to address that? That's how you get personalization, is through assessment and identifying what is going on with the individual.
That's a great point. And kind of what Desi said earlier about like the nervous system stuff. People need to understand, and again, like you don't have to be like an expert in physiology to like help clients get results, okay? If it's not a recruitment problem, like it can be a retention problem. But you are only as strong and as powerful as your nervous system will allow you to be, okay? Yeah. If you're injured, okay, it's not a fault of you. It is a physiological nervous system defense mechanism because your body doesn't want to get further hurt. It's a survival thing. So you're only as strong as your nervous system will allow you to be. If you're someone who's super high energy all the time, which is kind of like me, I'm more type A, but if you're on all the time and you have a higher CNS regulation all the time, there's going to come a point where your performance will suffer because you're not taking into consideration the other side of the recovery scale. So you're only as strong and powerful as your nervous system will allow you to be. Okay, I've said that many times, and that's a really important take-home point that I really want everybody to take away from this. You're only as strong and powerful or stable as your nervous system will allow you to be. Okay, just think of it for a second. Like if you've been injured multiple times, your nervous system's like on lockdown. So again, like it's really great about the nervous system stuff. So I just wanted to add that.
100%.
Mel, fuel recovery for like fueling for recovery. How can coaches implement those advices about how to fuel in their existing programs that they already had for their clients?
So we do interface with a lot of coaches, trainers, gyms, and it's probably the area that I think has to be the most individualized with who you're working with. And again, it goes back to what you were saying about the level of intensity, how people are going to recover, how they're going to fuel their workouts. I think it's a level of intensity. You're not going to have the same nutritional needs or recovery needs, someone who's doing something so intense versus someone who's doing a lighter workout or whatever. So I would just simply say that we encourage people from our universe, from the food side, to take a long, hard look at what you ingest after your workout. It makes the world of difference. And I just want to say this, if I have like 2 seconds, because I don't know if you have more questions. I just want to make one plea in case I don't get to. I'm asking every person here if I would love for you to buy my product, but if you don't buy my product, I would really pray that every person start doing a much better job at reading the labels on the food that you buy. It matters so much, especially in a toxic world where recovery becomes impossible if you're inflamed, if your gut is, You know, I went through a very bad period of leaky gut, SIBO, and I could not break through. I couldn't even work out. I was inflamed, just miserable. So I tell people, just please read the labels on everything you're picking up, because it will matter in your recovery, in your performance, and overall throughout your entire life. Your health actually depends on it. So in case...
Imagine not sleeping well because a food you ate, and then that food was supposed to fuel you and recover you. Then you have two problems, a problem from the food and a problem from the sleep. And the next day you can't perform or go to work or wherever.
As they said earlier, sleep hygiene for me in all of my studies has been the key factor. It's not, as you said, it's multifactorial, as you said, but really if you're not sleeping and you're not fueling and you're not checking those boxes, I don't know how you can, you can power through it, but you're not going to thrive. And that's what we're about, is getting people to thrive where they're at.
Yep. All right, this is a big subject. We probably would need a session for it. But anyways, longevity, vitality, and sustainable wellness. Where's Sean Ray? Where's Rayhan? We have a friend here, been in the industry for 40 years. Sean Ray, my microphone, I think, working? Okay. Okay. What daily or weekly habits support long-term vitality and aging? You guys, what do you think? What should people do on daily basis or weekly basis to support aging gracefully?
I guess I'll go. You got to keep things very simple and practical for people. 2 to 4 sessions a week for resistance training, progressive overload, changing variables, intensity, sets, repetitions. You don't need 17 exercises per exercise session. Okay? Adequate protein, generally speaking, 1 gram per pound of body weight. You can go between, I know research from Stu Phillips and ISSN is, 1.6 to 2.2. Sometimes it's 1.2 to 1.6 grams per kg. Sleep quality, to get in high quality, like REM sleep. Steps, okay, people forget that, meaning like, what is your cardiovascular endurance? I just have to be honest here. I don't have no clue how, and this is more of for a male thing, I have no clue how most guys get through their training session and work out doing very little cardio and conditioning. Because and I'm not saying if you do it, awesome, but it will negatively impair your recovery more than you think, okay? It would also increase risk factors, later on down the road. But you have to do some type of cardio conditioning aspect. Most people think cardio is like, I just got to get on a treadmill and walk. Again, nothing wrong with that. But challenge yourself, like, is it, 10% grade, 15% grade? Are you going to wear like a weighted vest? Or can you do battle ropes? You can do tire flips. You can do high intensity intervals. You can do ellipticals. There's all kinds of other conditioning methods, like modified strongman training. What you'll find is that, again, it's not about the training, it's about the adaptation. So the more adaptable that you can be, the better your training will be, and not only you will be able to be better recovered within training sessions and also the subsequent training sessions.
Dr. Darcy, what do you think?
Thank you. So 2 things come to mind right away. Long before I was a yoga teacher, I was a personal trainer. And when I'm working with private clients, I will marry strength and flexibility, for sure. And I've had the honor of working with some of the beautiful women in this audience. And what I like to do is find out what's going on in your head while you're training. So for example, if it's a push day, what is it that you need the strength to push away? Is it a nasty boss who's throwing you under the bus? Is it some situation? What is it that you need the strength to pull towards you? Is it the dream of your life? That kind of thing. The other thing is, because we're still in the beginning of the year and we're talking about, exercise adherence and the numbers start to drop off, I believe the number 1 indicator of exercise adherence, people sticking with it, is having someone there waiting for you. So community is huge. Of course, as their trainer, as their coach, you're part of that. But if you can build that for them and with them, that's enormous. You will have them for life. So whether that's the class and they're coming together as a class, if they're coming together in a digital forum, I lead international retreats for women all over the world. We bring them together and we keep them together. But that gives them that extra oomph, and they want to do it together. And longevity is just something that's supported and honored by the deep friendship.
Christine, would you like to?
Yeah, sure. So one of the things that I think, and I know you touched on this, Desi, is just understanding how different people at different points in their life especially as women, change in what they need. You know, you might have been, and your clients might be athletes when they're in their 20s and 30s and their bodies function a certain way, and then when they hit 40, they're going through perimenopause and menopause, things change, and the way that they need to be trained changes too. So getting some knowledge around that so that you can help support your clients in those transitions. I mean, men lose testosterone, there's a lot of things that happen as you age, and longevity is being able to continue to sustain some level of activity, you know, but strength looks different for somebody who's in their 30s than in their 40s, for example. So that's something to consider. The other thing that I think about with the longevity is pain, right? Like pain, you know, having back pain, hip pain, knee pain, whatever your pain is, headaches, migraines, shoulder pain, that is what gets you in the way of being able to exercise and being able to stay active and get your 10,000 steps in. And it's a drag, right? It pulls on you in ways that, you know, affect your mental health and lots of other things. So, you know, paying attention to what's happening in your body when you are experiencing pain, that is a message from your nervous system that is saying something is not right, I need to pay attention here, and addressing that early on. You know, like if I had my wish, I would have, you know, clients that are teenagers, which I do have some teenagers that have actually picked up this habit, but I would have clients that are teenagers actually focusing on making sure that their bodies were balanced and their bodies were stable and that they weren't carrying muscle tension that was grinding their joints down to an arthritic state. So paying attention to pain and really addressing pain where it is at its root, you know, is a big piece for being able to do all the other things that we want to do to keep our body well.
I agree. Well, these three pillars that we've been talking about are the major things for both clients and coaches. Thank you so much for our incredible panelists for sharing such an insightful and impactful knowledge. We've learned today that hydration, fueling, and recovery are not separate, and they are interdependent pillars to shape energy and long-term vitality. For coaches, leaning into these pillars is not just about improving outcomes. It's about creating more holistic, human, and centered coaching experience. On behalf of Coach 360, thank you for attending this session. And you guys can follow all the panelists and find them, except the mysterious Mel, she's not. But you can follow her leaner bar and support her in her business. Thank you.